So here we go, everybody. The Pocketbook Inkpad Color 2, the latest in what should be Kaleido 3, but isn't. It's Kaleido 2, or Kaleido PLUS. While other manufacturers like Readmoo, Onyx, and Bigme are on their second or even third release of Kaleido 3, there have been some stragglers like Moby Scribe and Pocketbook today, who are still stuck in the second generation, which is mostly due to delays in the industry. But aside from that, let's dive into the latest color e-reader of 2023. Take a look at the Inkpad Color 2 by Pocketbook. Kaleido 3, Kaleido Shmee, who needs it? Well, a lot of manufacturers, except Pocketbook evidently. For the most part, everyone, don't be scared. This is not going to be an absolute night and day difference between 2 and 3. The jump between 2 and 3 is subtle, but it is still a little bit concerning that Pocketbook is going with a Kaleido 2 screen. We thought the last Kaleido 2 screen was the Bigme S6, and this came out significantly further after that Bigme release, but here it is, so let's check it out all the same. The top drop down is where you're going to find all of your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, dark mode, flight mode, and everything else like brightness and smart light, etc. Going back to the main screen, you'll see all of your content in the middle is in color. Everything else will be in color as well. On the bottom, you have library, audiobooks, store, notes, and apps. It's not apps like the traditional sense where you download Android APKs. This is not Android. At the very bottom, you get some buttons. You get a home button, a left or back, a right or forward, and a power button. Yes, the entire device is very clean because all of these buttons are on the bottom, and they're a little bit wavy and bumpy, so you know exactly where they are. Let us look at apps first. You have browser, calculator, music player, etc. There's a lot of things here. Now you will also notice coloring, which we're going to get into first because they've never really had that, at least on a lot of their units before. They do have scribble, but they don't have coloring. So we're going to do something a little bit different and look at what we can see here. What this is like paint, and everything is centered around the paint bucket. So if I wanted to do the sun in yellow, I would choose yellow, and it gets painted yellow. If I wanted to do a red truck, I would click that and it becomes a red truck. This is very interesting, but a little bit unnecessary, I guess you would say. It's nice that it's there, I suppose. It's kind of fun, but a lot of the note-taking experience happens around here, which is the scribbling section. Scribbling has been something that Pocketbook has implemented a long time ago, and technically, Pocketbook was the first color note-taking device ever with the Pocketbook Color because they had scribble. Now, when you do go into scribble, no, you can't use a Wacom pen or anything like that, and anything you do on the screen, be it your fingertip or the pen, is going to be the same thing because this is simply simulating a capacitive touch. But it's kind of interesting because you do have 8 colors, one being white, and you can take notes. It's not the fastest experience. In fact, it's quite delayed and quite slow, and it's a little bit blurry when you first write it, and then it kind of renders itself. But it's kind of cool that it's there. There aren't a whole lot of options, but there's enough to, I suppose, have a decent time. For example, I can go over here and choose red, and go here and choose 3 because there's no pressure sensitivity. And say really quick, let's take notes and just scribble like a doctor. I have an eraser as well. I can use my eraser to scrub everything away. I can add text on the screen, which I didn't think you really need that in such a lightweight note-taking section like this, but you can do it. You can take text notes on the screen like that, and in fact, once you do have that, you can change the font. You can change the font to various things, actually. You have different font styles, different font weights like italicize, and different font points. Kind of weird that they would have that and no shapes, for example, but I guess you don't really need that because it is so lightweight, and that is what the coloring is for. But this being an e-reader, first and foremost and essentially only, let's look at the reading experience. Aside from the cover art being in color, you don't need anything else to be in color, and it isn't. It's black and white, unless you consider black and white colors, which kind of they are in a way. One's all the colors and one is the absence of color. Oh look, I found my name, Peter. So let's start by doing a long press on Peter. Because this is color now, you can do different highlights. You can do pinks, you can do blues, and actually you can box a very large amount of text as well, like that, and then click yellow. That's really cool. You do also have the ability to tap in the center and bring up all of your information down below, your settings, your rotate, your notes, etc. When you go into settings, font settings, it'll bring up another window that has some management things here. So you have margins, you have the line spacing, and you have the different fonts you can do. You might be seeing us struggling with touch, and that is because we're struggling with touch. The touch boxes on all of these are very slow. It's very hard to tap. It's very hard to know where you are a lot of the time, and really there's no way to speed it up. In fact, the only way to speed it up is right here in this little section. Because it doesn't have an A2 mode, it's reserved for certain things like this to give you a little bit of scrolling ease and some inertia. But you can't actually translate this application to anything else in the device because there's no system-wide information. So it's a little bit concerning that the thing is not exactly as fast as we would like it, but we are spoiled by these powerhouse tablets with e-paper screens we've been seeing in the recent as of late. So it's not that bad, I would say, but for the most part, it is harking back to something that is more of an ebook reader because it is. This is an ebook reader. It's not meant to be super fast. You can see, though, that the resolution is quite nice, and when you zoom in all the way, you get the curved characters like the E's and the O's and the U's and stuff. They're not fuzzy by any stretch of the word. They're very, very good. By the way, we do have the glow light on. That is not from a mistake or anything like that. It is just to help the color boost because, unfortunately, color screens look like this when you don't have the glow light on. They're very gray, and you can compare it to the background here. That's super gray blue. This is not Pocketbook's fault. This is the industry standard of color. Every single color device looks like this. That's why it's good to have that glow light on a little bit. You'll see that out of the 32 gigs, you get 27.6, and with the preloaded stuff, you get 26.3. You can browse via folders, or you can browse via authors, genres, collections, etc. So you do get a lot of choices as to how you'll find your information. When you do go to folders, it's going to be the exact same way you will see it on your PC. And yes, you do get a little bit of an A2 mode here with some inertia as you're moving around, but again, it's dedicated to just there. You'll see these are all the things in the English section, in which case you can scroll like that and click on something to open it up. Congratulations, Pocketbook. This has a great audio experience. It's not loud, and we put it full blast, but that was high quality. And that's kind of the opposite of a lot of devices. We find that a lot of devices fill the room with sound, but sound kind of tinny. This one was the opposite. It was quite quiet, but super rich. And of course, because this has built-in speakers and doesn't give you that little USB headphone dongle, you can do audiobooks.
Collection of short stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain, and for further information, please visit LibriVox.org.
You know, to be honest, again, it's not that loud, but this is laid out quite beautifully. You get all of your controls at the bottom, you get your volume, you get these different sections along this kind of timeline, you get contents and bookmarks, and a little bit of an icon in the middle. I think it's beautifully laid out for a company not as big as Amazon. We're not trying to discount Pocketbook by any degree of the word, but Amazon is king, of course, and they've been doing audiobooks for quite some time. They even have audiobook as a toggle in their store. So this is a very nice experience, and it is very beautifully distributed. Now we need to really look at the store, because Pocketbook has a great ecosystem. Now, it's not the best ecosystem. That would mostly be reserved for Amazon and Kobo, but in terms of international, this is a very good one because they basically allow you to purchase all this different content in all these languages from anywhere in the world. And not only that, Pocketbook has a great approach to languages. From the documentation to the device UI, it's all internationally friendly, and it's quite nice. So you would go over here and you would purchase in euros, and it would get downloaded directly to your unit. You also have some suggestions, and you have ISBNs and everything you're going to need to give you the best purchase decision possible. Above all else, this is a color device. So let's look at color. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, because we've been around it so long, we're kind of pulling all the inconsistencies between this and other things like Gallery 3, Kaleido 3, etc. To a lesser extent, Spectra, which no one has a Spectra device. But for the most part, it's pretty good. But I will say that when you have Kaleido 2, you do see these pixelated kind of honeycomb blocks a little bit more evident than you do on 3 or Gallery. It's just less smoothed over. Again, let's really tell you guys that when you get this, you're not going to be disappointed. You're not going to look at this and say, oh man, that looks terrible. It's not what's happening here. You're watching this channel because we are meticulous. We dissect everything. We put these under a microscope to see what they're like, and that's kind of our job, is to obviously tell you the shortcomings and the pros and cons. If we just said it's color, it's good, bye, I mean, that wouldn't be much of a breakdown now, would it? Now, the color's good. It's kind of rich, but it's a little bit more washed out, a little bit more clouded than Kaleido 3. Not by a wide degree, but we do see less richness in these lilacs, these greens, and even this red, which, if you watch our other videos, typically this guy is quite prominent on the screen. Now, you can do a few things to mitigate this. If you go over here, you can change the smart light to change how orange it is or how blue it is, and of course you can up the brightness. That is a way to kind of change exactly what you're looking at. You can use the page turn buttons or the page turn swiping gesture in order to change pages, or you can tap. Now, I will say that overall, this unit has a good color experience. It's not great, it's not the best we've seen, and in fact, they are just trailing behind a lot of manufacturers right now, 4 or 5 to name at least, in terms of color advancements. But it is good to see Pocketbook releasing something that is in color, that is 7.8, and to be honest, there's not many color devices being released right now. There are some, but nothing compared to the start of the second wave between 2019 and 2021, where there was just a ton of color devices being just pumped out by everyone. iReader, iFlyTech, Hisense, all 3 of those companies don't do color right now at all. So it's good to see Pocketbook continuing that on, because they did start things off with the Pocketbook Color that really was prominently featured at the top of a lot of people's top lists and review lists. Let's look at a couple final things that this device can do that they preloaded onto here that kind of sets it apart from a lot of other devices. This one has built-in Dropbox. Yeah, for the most part, if you have an Android device, you just download Dropbox, but this isn't Android, so for them to have it is kind of nice. They have Dropbox, they have Pocketbook Cloud, and they have Send to Pocketbook as well, which is a service that allows you to send things directly to your Pocketbook. You can continue with their account, or you want to connect only to that service, you just sign in via that. Now, there is something else they have as well back in the apps section, and that is Onlihe. I never knew how to pronounce that because I don't know what country it derives from, but it is quite interesting. What it is you choose a library. Now, for the most part, none of them are going to be in North America. I think they have a couple, but there are so many libraries in Europe. I just swiped 10 seconds and I'm still in A and B. You can see the scroller bar on the side, how far we need to go to get to the bottom. It is absolutely staggering the amount of choices they have here. There's so many. There must be 1,000 at least. It's quite nice to have something like this. We do see this every once in a while, and sometimes as a pleasantry they'll add Los Angeles or New York or something like that, but I believe they don't really have anything from America on here, if I'm not mistaken, and I am not, so that it's pretty much just from Europe. But it is interesting that you're able to download and borrow books from libraries if it is in your respective country and you can have access to it. Typing is a little bit on the slow side, but once you get used to it and you kind of just go a little bit slowly, you'll get used to how much it recognizes your keystrokes, then you should be fine. We have the web browser here. Everything is trudging along. It's not a sprint, but this is definitely a marathon. Once things do show up, it's fine, I believe. It's not a miraculous experience, but you do get a little bit of an A2 mode when you're scrolling. Again, I really would have liked to see that as a toggle, so I could just keep it in A2 mode, because you get this very violent refresh every single time, and it renders. It just kind of kicks you out of the experience, and that's not going to be that big of a deal on web browsing. But if you are reading books on web-based services like Project Gutenberg, or for example, that scrolling hit is going to take you out of the experience. And it is important for people that require reading immersion that they don't break immersion, and that's why something that refreshes less, like an A2 mode, would have been nice to see. But it is what it is, and this is the only speed mode that is system-wide. Aside from putting these under a microscope and dissecting them in an over-meticulous way like us reviewers do, there isn't really that much of a night and day difference between this and the latest Color 3 tech. There are some PPI differences, some contrast and vividness that you'll find improved in the latest gen, but for the average viewer, this is more than capable, and Pocketbook is a very fitting brand for color and has been dabbling in color for quite some time. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.